Tuner exterior chat line.
Yes.
Keep it up there.
Good morning, New Eden. Today is October 16th, 2022, and this is the Federation Frontline Report. I'm your host, Frozen Fallout, and today we're interviewing Alek, CEO and founder of Noir and the Network Alliance, who just started fighting for the Gallente Federation. How's space treating you these days, Alek?
Not so bad. It's good to be here.
Awesome. Yeah, glad to have you, man. Glad to have you fighting for the Gallente. You guys been getting good kills, good fights out there?
We haven't had a really good fight. Actually, no, that's not true. We did have one good fight against Cal Mill already. Couple good kills on multiple time zones, so that's good. We're a multi-time zone corp, so it's great to have action for everybody. And
Yeah.
it's nice to not have to chase Ishtars and complexes for a little while.
Yeah. Sorry about that. A little bit of a change of pace. That's always good. So, let's jump into, like, how did you get into EVE Online? What was your first experience with this, and what really brought you on board to this game?
So my first taste of online MMO gaming was actually Matrix Online.
Oh, I played that.
Yeah, all right, you get it. Absolutely loved it. I really, really loved it. I was a huge Matrix fan at the time, and it was my first online. I mean, I had played BattleTech, and every once in a while I'd mess around with the multiplayer on MechWarrior, that kind of thing, but it wasn't really an MMO in the same way. So this is my first foray into that whole genre. I never got into WoW or any of the other big popular games like EverQuest. I loved Matrix. I loved the people that I played Matrix with. And when that game really started to decline and they stopped putting out storyline updates and kind of the writing was on the wall for it, the leaders of the guild I was in, Royal Guard, looked for other games for us to play. Somebody mentioned, hey, what about that game we tried a couple years ago, Eve? do we still have stuff there? And the one guy's like, yeah, I think we do. All right, let's give it a try. And I was like, oh, I don't know if I want to pick up another game. I gotta buy whatever. And I looked and said, I forget if it was 14 or 30, but it had a pretty long trial with no payment.
30-day, I think, back then. Yep. Yeah, that would have been, what year would that be in? 2000.
I think this was 05, 06.
Yeah.
Somebody look up my character age.
Because that sounds about right. Because I remember that's when I about started playing EVE for real. I had a few times that I came in with odd eyes and was like, got a couple trials. I started back in the beta originally too, and I was like, I have no idea what the fuck this game is.
Yeah, I started up mid-February 2006. And it was cool. We had a fairly standard, little bit of everything, jack of all trades type corp. I learned from the senior members, got started in high sec, and I wanted to be a smuggler.
Smuggler?
I want to be a space smuggler, and I saw that Eve had a skill for it. It's like, oh, that's gonna be cool. Well, turns out the skill was broken. And so I started in character, put all these points into it, but I really liked it, so I just stuck with it. I was like, okay, hauling is cool, but what else does the game have to offer? And more of our players were moving to low sec and Palil, just in Placid. And they were all going there, and it's like, oh, low sec, I don't know if I'm ready. I don't know what it is. It seems scary. And then we got war decked.
Oh, fun times, yeah.
Oh, okay, we're going to be fighting somebody. Cool. And on the first day of the war, I lost to Tristan and got potted. And I was like, oh, okay. I guilted the other player CEO to institute a no podding rule because I was just a poor Care Bear that just started out. and their pilots already blew up my ship. They didn't have to pod me. That was uncalled for. And it just kept going on. And I got them to agree not to pod anybody else for the duration of the war. Just hilarious in hindsight.
Oh,
and after that experience, I was like, oh man, this
Diplo.
game's great. I want to do more of this stuff. I want to do more PvP. I want to do more interacting with other players. So I took the plunge and moved all my stuff into our low-sec headquarters. And that's where I parked myself until we got involved in null-sec politics around the Mercenary Coalition invasion of the North way back when.
Yep, I remember that. So were you on the mercenaries side or on the Mercenary Coalition or the Northern Coalition?
We were on Northern Coalition at the time. We were trying to get our alliance more established within Northern Coalition politics. So we're like, all right, this is like, we're going to join, we're going to fight, and then hopefully once they come out on top, because Northern Coalition, so strong at the time, no one ever thought they'd lose.
Right.
Certainly not to just Mercenary Coalition. So we were like, oh, we'll put our dues in, we'll like get to know people, and then we'll take a couple systems in pure blind or something like that. So we just started getting into it, and I rapidly became one of maybe 2 active FCs that were really committed to fighting the war. And so I got to know Slingtris from NC Dot and Bob Fame. And we did our best. It was fun fighting Mercenary Coalition. Lost horrifically. But it was a good experience, and we built on that. We stayed involved in Northern Coalition stuff for a little while. Then we decided to strike out on our own into the drone lands. That didn't work out. And I got so frustrated with the lack of PvP enthusiasm from the industrial side of the Alliance. I said, you know what? I wonder if I can earn money in this game just by PvPing. So I started looking for mercenary alliances. I found Divine Retribution. And I tried that for 2.5, 3 weeks, something like that, while they were on a contract. Absolutely loved it. My corporation that I joined decided to leave. I wanted to stay a mercenary. Divine Retribution had like a real life money payment requirement, which I was not about to do. So I started looking around for anyone else that offered similar things. Almost joined Mercenary Coalition, but they had just founded Tortuga and had shut their doors for recruitment.
So did you, real quick, did you watch the video for that?
Oh, of course.
God, man, that is one of the most iconic videos for EVE Online. I remember that distinctly happening at that time, and just being like, wow, like, this is EVE, man. Like, it's a whole new, long-standing alliances, people you thought would never, betray each other or anything, like, just all of a sudden are like, nope, we're out. Like, we are going to be independent of you, Bob. Like, this is a whole new age. And then it, like, flopped, like, not too long after. I mean, maybe long in EVE terms it lasted ish, but
at the time it was so exciting to be around when Tortuga was happening. It's like, oh my god, this is the golden age of mercenary work. I gotta get in. This is the time. Oh no, we're not recruiting anybody because of spies and other things. So I was like, well, no one else is paying their pilots, which is what I wanted. I wanted some way to sustain my EVE life, buy ships, buy skills, etc. with PvP. No one was doing that, even though they were mercenaries, which always seemed weird to me. Like, well, if you have mercenary pilots and you're getting money, where's that money go?
Right. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I guess SPR, right? Like,
I mean, back in the days, SRP was rare. It was probably just going to
I remember that,
some director titan or something like that.
I would imagine that the mercenaries, though, would be the ones that would be like, we're providing you the ships. So.
Oh, some of them did do ship handouts. That's true. This is pre-SRP. Back in the day when corporations just had ship caches and they doled them out.
Yep.
But it wasn't quite what I had in mind, so I decided to take the plunge and create my own corp, with the premise being that we would directly pay our pilots the vast majority of the incoming contract disk.
Okay, and yep. What year was this in?
This was 2008? Yeah, January 2008.
Okay. So,
and that was the concept. And I got started. I looked to my old alliance for our first contract because they knew me and they knew that I was good. So I was like, hey, happy to do it for free. Just like give me a reference or whatever. So I did one, did another one, and then I picked up 2 or 3 people, and they weren't super active, but they were still there. And then before I knew it, I had 5 or 6 people, and I wanted us to get better, so I bought a training contract from like the other small gang mercenary alliance that was kind of like the thing to do right now.
Okay, yeah.
Trinity Nova, they weren't involved in Tortuga. They were a little small, but they had a great rep. So I was like, hey, we could probably afford these guys. Teach us how to be amazing mercenaries. And we were actually beating them in some of the scrims that they had set up. So they were like, hey, don't actually think we need to teach you too much. You probably just need a lot of experience. Come join our alliance.
What alliance was this?
Trinity Nova Alliance.
Trinity Nova Alliance. Okay, awesome. Yeah, so...
And the rest is history. We just took off. We recruited a ton of people. We got on some awesome contracts. And then, before I knew it, we had more people, more activity, etc. than the founding corp. And then
So why the switch over from Trinity to the network?
So Trinity Nova's executor, Vicar Fell, he just kind of went AFK. Real life takes its toll on all of us, and Eve is a luxury at the end of the day. So he dropped. I think his second in command also was pretty inactive, and they just didn't feel like they could continue on running the alliance, so they shut her down. After which Noir formed Noir Mercenary Group, and we just sort of struck out on our own for a little while. But it always kind of bothered me that Noir Mercenary Group was like Noir Mercenary Group. It didn't really feel like it had room for other corps, even though we usually picked up 1 or 2 from time to time.
Yep.
So I wanted an alliance that,
a name that represented more than just Noir.
Yeah, and I mean, everyone knows the Noir name.
Yeah.
So we lost a little bit of brand recognition tagging the network. No one knows who the network is, but it was important to me that we created an alliance that if we did pick up another corp someday, they could feel like they could call it their own just as much as we could.
That's awesome. I really, that's a way of thinking, definitely, that can be more, you gotta worry about your PR, your public image,
yeah.
and
no, we don't have another corp. No, we usually don't have other corps in the alliance.
Well, you have.
I like the idea of it.
You do seem like you have a decent amount of alliances. I thought that. Oh no, I thought that maybe I was looking at something else.
We popped around a little bit, but it's either alliances that we owned or if we were in a 1 corp alliance and we saw the opportunity of like another mercenary alliance up and coming that we really liked and respected, sometimes we would hop over there to give it a try. But most mercenary alliances in EVE just do not last. That's the truth. I've seen so many rise and fall since Noir has been around, and Noir is the only one that's still going.
Yeah, that's so I mean, that's 10, 15, how many years is that? That would be like 10 plus years, isn't it?
I'm going on 15 years, I think.
15 years. That's just unbelievable, man. That's and you've been running this like this entire time. Have you taken like major breaks at all? You ever hit that burnout wall, or are you like some superhuman EVE player that never runs out of energy?
I've never taken a full break from the game. I've had a couple month spans where I'm really disengaged or I really have to be busy from work, but I've always been blessed with really good directors who could pick it up for me. And that's I was like, important. Hey, I'm just not around for a while. Like, I'll be back, but I can't right now. So could you guys? And they usually are like, yeah, we got this. That's and then awesome, when they get burnt out, I usually come back. So it kind of works out.
Yeah, and I know what you mean about building up an alliance. Is we're kind of like mercenaries, but we work for the Gallente full time. Kind of was the kind of look at how we started out and all of this.
So are we.
And that's something I want to get to because recently you have joined up with the Gallente. And that is something that I was really excited to hear was happening. When I saw that you guys were debating about coming in, talking with Nightflyer, who had to be away today due to the evils of real life, he was super excited for this interview. But Nightflyer was talking to me a little bit about how you guys were looking into possibly coming to Faction Warfare, and was like, what would be the good, why should they fight for the Gallente? I want to do a pitch. And I'm like, dude, we're fucking losing. That's why. There's more targets. Like, I mean, if they want to, like, make money, maybe the Caldari, but I mean, even so, the way that the market is and stuff like that, it's so weird. Like, you're it looks like you wouldn't make as much money, but your LP is actually worth more ISK than the other side. So, but I was like, the real reason to fight, though, is to fight, right? Like, that there's targets in space, and there are 1 million Caldari comparatively to us. I think it was like 750 or something like that, 770 pilots in the Caldari that are on the kill board. So they're at least dying or killing somebody. So they're in space doing stuff, and we've got like 300. Like it is literally like the 300 versus like the major enemy of
holding the pass of Hades.
Yes, holding the pass of Hades that has like tipped so close to being taken down. So what can you tell me about what would happen with this? Why are you joining up with Faction Warfare?
Like, I can't tell you tons because we usually don't discuss contracts while they're still going.
Mm-hmm.
Afterward, you can tune into our podcast, which I'll pitch at the end.
Absolutely.
Declarations of War.
I love that podcast, by the way.
Thank you. We'll usually put a contract review up in there. It's like a contract AAR of sorts, but instead of doing it on the forums, we do it on the podcast.
Beautiful.
But I'll say that we were debating very heavily where to go. We were thinking maybe Amar for a little bit. Caldari, we knew some people. We knew Tempest Kalsef. They're one of our previous alliances. Really love those guys. The only reason we left them was because they were in Faction Warfare and we didn't want to be. So really, really liked those guys. Still do. I've met them in E-Vegas several times, and we're just on great terms with their leadership and their members. But Nightflyer's pitch was pretty persuasive. So you're like, okay, well, we do know people in Caldari, but there's also very few targets if we were to join them. Like, we're not going to be able to kill and fight as much. Oh, yeah, okay. We're just debating about it, and finally we had a corp meeting. It was during the last day of the AT feeders, and we were going to finally hash it out, take a straw poll where everyone was at, and figure out what side should go on. And as that's happening, you secure the contract to join the Gallente militia. It was literally that morning that we got reached out to, and mid-meeting that it got finished.
Oh, wow. Perfect timing.
Nice. Makes that decision very easy. Okay, guys, good talk, but this is what we're going to do and why. They're like, oh, okay, contract. Cool, we like that.
So are you looking forward to the, and did the new changes coming to Faction Warfare, the events that are going on right now, did that have any influence on wanting to come to Faction Warfare? Or what was the idea of why is Faction Warfare seem like an interesting place right now? Or was it that you were just getting lots of contract offers?
No, it's definitely the new patch. I'm interested in the system itself. I think it has a reasonable chance of being good. And I think in general, CCP has signaled repeatedly, in fact, it's the only thing that they've signaled, that this Faction Warfare system is where the bulk of their development and marketing interest is going to be for this coming year. So we're like, all right, well, it looks cool. We haven't done it before. If we were ever going to do it, this is the time, because there's a lot of interest and activity and probably a lot of new players incoming to the space. So let's give it a try if we're going to do it at all. We're still going to be taking contracts, not while this one is up, but if we decide to stay in Faction Warfare, we would still be the usual mercs that we are, which means we'll be hopping around on contracts in nullsec and wormhole space and other parts of lowsec most of the time. But it will be nice, if the system is good, to be able to come back to Faction Warfare and get involved in throwdown and fights and stuff. Usually we're based in Thera. We still have our stuff in Thera. Kind of the jury's out on CCP as to whether or not we stick with faction warfare really long term, or it's just a nice vacation for our usual nullsec roaming.
Interesting. So, what are some of the like aspects of the new patches that's coming up that's really got you excited, or what's the big change up that's really got you excited that they're going to be putting out there in the new patch here?
I kind of like the idea of the frontline system. Eve is lower population than it's been in a very long time, and it has more systems than it's ever had, more regions. So, you know, take it from a nullsec roamer, it's a bit hit or miss out there. You'll either run into an Ishtar that tends to run away as soon as you hit local, or more likely you'll just go multiple jumps without seeing anything at all. And if you do run into people, they're bunched up and concentrated. Tends to be.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just getting increasingly like that. So I think if you rolled this feature out a couple of years back, people would be like, "That's insane! Like the server's we need people more spread out, not less." But I don't think that's where the game is right now. I do think we need people concentrated more. So
Yeah,
I'm interested in that.
I really like the frontline system. I like the idea behind it, especially since it's going to break the tier system. So I mean, right now we have this tier system that it's really up to market forces to balance back the reason why, you know, the supply and demand, kind of churning your LP into worth more if you're losing, but the winning side gets more, and they can do like mission running for these, you know, insane amounts of LP that they can get if they push tier 4 or get up to tier 5 and stuff like that. While the other side is sitting at a 50% reduction to LP payout. The market forces help to a certain degree, but there are definitely, when you're at tier 4 and tier 5, you're making a lot of LP, and then you're sitting on that LP waiting for when the market bounces back, because eventually the Gallente, you want the Gallente to start winning and that your LP becomes depreciated because you've stockpiled trillions of LP and you're waiting for this time, and you've created your own, you know, depletion in the market by not actually providing to the supply chain.
Which is a very correct, very Eve thing to do, but as a game system, what?
Yeah, no, it's really, it's not. I think making money in faction warfare, having it be so convoluted, is one of the reasons why faction warfare has not succeeded as much. Because I feel like I've heard a lot of complaints on Reddit, in YouTube, stuff like that, of just people being like, well, how do you expect them to pay for ships that are just going to get lost all the time? And I'm like, what are you talking about? You do one Plex, and especially for a newbie, you've paid for one or two, even if just doing the novice, an offensive novice will pay for, even at your 50% reduction in LP, is about like 5 million to 10 million ISK that you're going to be making. If you're on the winning side, you might be making more than that kind of thing. And how you're, you know, once again, the complications of the fucking market make it a little bit hard to explain why you're making so much fucking money from 5,000 LP or 15 or 25,000 LP. But you can make just tons of money off of this. It's, you know, you can easily, especially if you're doing it in tier 1 ships, you're sticking to novices, you're going to the backwater systems and stuff like that. If you're on the losing, which actually is a big thing with the losing side, can go into these backwater systems, you can make some money. But nobody really knows that you can actually make this money and what to do. There's lots of newbies, I'm sure, that have quit faction warfare with, you know, 100,000 or 500,000 LP just sitting there and never knowing what the hell I was supposed to do with this.
Well, there's a lot of steps to it for a new player, right? Like you gotta say you don't have tons of experience running missions. Okay, you get LP. What's that? How do I cash it in? That's the first step. Then, okay, what do I cash it in for? There's this huge list of options. It doesn't give me much context as to what is better other than just the general price tiers, so I don't really know what to spend my ISK on. Okay, I do spend my LP to get this stuff and possibly some ISK, which I may or may not have. I might need to build it, so that brings in manufacturing, to someone who's probably more of a PvP player. And then on top of that, okay, it's built now. I have to get it to a market that it's actually going to sell relatively faster. I'm not going to see that money. All I'm going to see is the loss. And I don't. Maybe I'm new. I only know about Jita. If I'm not in Caldari Faction Warfare or Mara Faction Warfare, like, what's the best Gallente trade hub? What's the best Minmatar trade hub? How would I figure that out? You know, that's a lot to ask of a player that's maybe only a few months old.
Yeah, no, especially since you can get into it day one, technically. You know, it's one of those things that it's really hard to understand how much money you're actually making and go through all the process of steps of actually being able to make that money. And I think that holds back people quite a bit, the newer players and stuff. And unfortunately, that's not something that's going to get fixed from my understanding. They haven't really talked about... Yeah, no, they haven't talked about, like, changing up the LP system. But the one thing that I do have to say is that it is very Eve, though. So even though that I think it deters a little bit, I think there should be, like, a tutorial to take you through that whole process and start off with just faction Navy comets. They're always going to be fucking in supply. They're always going to be in demand. And just teach a player how to get into a Federation Navy comet and bring it to a trade hub and sell it. Because that right there will get you, you know, if you're a brand new player, you can get a Federation Navy comet fairly easy within, you know, easily 20-30 minutes of going out into the war zone and coming back. You can get a Federation Navy comet, go off and sell it, and then you can see that you can make some money off of running faction warfare missions. But that would be my only big suggestion. But I really like, though, that it's moving away from this weird quasi, like, why are one side winning or the other? How do you know, oh, I should definitely join the Caldari because they're at tier 2 and the enemy is at tier 1. So, but that really doesn't matter too much at that level because of market forces and stuff like that. Although the Caldari having Jita is rough, I have to say.
Yeah.
That's gonna be...
That was a big, like, ooh, if we join Gallente, we have to think about Jita and the years and years worth of roaming ships we have stocked there.
Yeah.
All right. We'll move the ones we think we need, and I'm sure we'll get the rest someday.
Yeah, it is a interesting, like, it all goes to third-party hauling, which, you know, I'm getting used to more and more because I live out in Losec. I can't really go to Jita even if I wasn't in the Gallente anymore with my main character, so I kind of just, as you live in Losec, you're just more used to being into the negatives. It becomes too costly to pay off the cops to not be, you know, I try and keep myself around like a -3, but that's not getting me into Jita. So I'm already kicked out of Jita. You know, kind of, you know, the police will be the ones that attack you and stuff like that. But then you have a kill mark or a kill right on you, right? And then all of a sudden somebody picks it up. You forget that you had that kill mark or kill mail or whatever. Kill, what is it fucking called?
Kill right. Kill
right. I said it at one point, then I just jumbled myself up. But anyways, yeah, that is, there's a lot of stuff that really looks interesting by getting rid of the tier system, making it being about where you're fighting is where you're going to be getting some LP, and in concentrating people, because I wouldn't say necessarily that faction warfare is botted to hell, because it doesn't need bots. It just needs somebody that can throw a AFK, kind of similar to the AFK Ishtars that are out there. It's a lot of AFK, you know, Trishtians and other kind of, you know, just easily, if you're defending, you can just have a completely empty ship, and you just put that ship out there. You get a lot less LP, but you're doing good system control and stuff like that.
Which I will say makes it a lot less satisfying to actually catch them, because you only get a Tristan kill mail and not a beefy Tech 2 fitted Ishtar.
Right, you don't get any drop from it, you know. Personally, I think they should get rid of offense and defense complexes. That there is no difference, that there is going to be a Caldari and a Gallente rat in there, and they start fucking fighting each other, and they can't win. They don't have enough DPS to win one side or the other. And when you come in, you see an ally or you see and an enemy fighting each other, and you have to come in and save the day type kind of thing.
Which is also a very Eve thing.
Right. Exactly. It's you got called for backup to come in and help. And I think that would be, I personally think that the rats should also have a point. And that's their whole thing, is that as soon as they see you, they switch from the rat that they were, fighting, the NPC that they're fighting. They come over, they web and scram you, or just long point you would be fine. And then you have something that you need to kill, and it's dangerous. I'm okay with danger. You just got to up the reward, right? Well, if these plexes in a frontline system are giving you tier 5 reward, which they haven't come out with exactly how much, but they want it to be a lot. They've talked about how the system behind that system will be the normal 100 or regular payout without the 50% reduction. I'm fine with things being a little bit more dangerous too. You've got to work together a little bit with your groups. There's standing fleets for all militias, from my understanding. Gallente has one that normally runs all day long, kind of thing. You get into the, if there's 5-man plexes that can reward up to 5 people and it diminishes after 5, I think that's really awesome. What do you think about the ideas of like making things more dangerous, in more NPCs are involved a little bit more?
In general, I like it. Having people commit a little bit to a PvP action. I mean, in nullsec, I think it just makes sense from an ecosystem point of view. You need to be able to hold people in those plexus for a little bit. Give them a way to kill it. Don't make it like a permanent bubble type thing, but extend the risk window a little bit, because otherwise it's far too small. But for low sec, it's a PvP action to be taking those plexes. It's part of a general player versus player struggle. You should have to commit a little bit to be able to get the reward out of that. And just like nullsec, the window is very small, especially when you're talking frigates. They can warp out of there in 3 seconds or less, depending how you fit them. The chances that you're actually going to get a successful engagement there are next to nothing. So Eve works better when players have skin in the game, just as a general principle. The more you're invested, the more you're committed, the more you have to risk, the better an experience it is for everyone all around. You get emotionally hyped, you have the fear of loss, you have the motivation for everyone else. There's an opportunity to engage with you in a meaningful way, either to help you and make your day, or to hurt you and ruin your day. If there's not enough risk or investment for people to care, a lot of the core gameplay value, at least that I see in Eve, falls apart.
No, I agree 100%. That is, there's a lot of talk right now about, on Reddit that I've been seeing about making high sec safer. Have you been reading any of that stuff, or have any opinions on making high sec safer?
I've got opinions on it. I think a pure safe high sec is a really bad idea. I think having maybe 1 or 2 systems with virtually no PvE capabilities, like maybe the newbie systems, starter systems specifically.
Mm-hmm. Which they kind of are. You're not supposed to do any PvP or scamming in newbie systems.
Yeah. And I think that is probably as fine as it should be. When I was on CSM, we did take a look at this. I'm pretty convinced that players getting ganked is not the end of the world. Usually when people lose a ship, actually, they're quite retained in Eve. So that's not so bad.
I've heard this. Yep.
Now there is another side to this, which is the risk-reward level. Is it too easy, too profitable for pirates to be popping haulers and getting the drops versus what they have to risk to do it in terms of ships and investment? That has been adjusted and tweaked over the years. Whether it's right now, I don't really have the data to tell you. but I do like that they don't get insurance anymore. That was a change.
I think that was a really good change.
Absolutely.
That was really smart. If the cops are blowing you up, I think you shouldn't get paid out by the insurance company. Obviously, you did something that you knew your ship was going to get blown up in.
Yeah. And, Concord is pretty responsive. If they want to make Concord respond faster, or they want to buff the hit points of haulers to make it a little harder for them to get popped, things like that, I'm fine with it. I don't think they should take away ganking in general, though.
I don't think they should take away ganking at all. I used to do some ganking. I kind of have stepped back from my high-sec ganking, and it was a lot of fun just to throw a tornado at a 85 and be like, all right, what do we get? I mean, we scan it. We know that there's it was always like, there's a billion ISK in this thing. Like, we'll just wait for the billion ISK haulers, to start hauling stuff. And it's like, do we get that 50% drop that we really need in order to pay off our 2 NATOs that we were throwing back when NATOs were a lot cheaper too? So, and it was interesting. It took a lot of skill. We definitely have taken major losses where we've got nothing out of the drop whatsoever. Or they were able to get back. We fucked up the amount of hauling space that we actually needed in order to capture it. And before I even really understood the concept of a DST, and just using a cloaked 85 myself on my alt, just to warp it in there and be like, dang it, I had the wrong rig. He had a little bit extra more space than me, and it's a package, and I can't fucking take it.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I like the idea that Eve is dangerous. If you do fit properly, it's a lot less likely that you're gonna get killed. If you're sitting in a paper thin ship, it's very and you made it more paper thin because you put nanofibers on it. It's you're kind of asking to be shot at by somebody, where if you
that's risk reward, right? You're taking a risk of more danger, but you want to be faster.
You want to be faster. Okay. You want more hull with hull extenders, more stuff that you can, more cargo space with cargo extenders. All of these things kind of add up and make it so that you're much more likely to get ganked, but you can get away with it a lot, and all of a sudden one day you're going to be like, fuck, what happened here? Why did I get ganked? I had all of course it happens on the time that I have the 4 billion ISK haul that I'm doing. It's like, yeah, because we saw the 4 billion ISK in your haul. Yep. I think that it'll be interesting. I do think that from my understanding, like you said, it was ganking didn't necessarily make people quit. And usually you're not just getting ganked after ganked after ganked. You kind of have it happen to you and you're like, what can you do in this game? I'm so I just wanted to shoot at the guy to get him out of my mission from taking my Rex. Why did he come back with a faction battleship and be able to blow me up? It teaches you there's mechanics and aggression timers and limited engagement timers that are out there you got to watch out for.
And it's a great opportunity if you're a new player that gets that to be presented with a tutorial or pop-up tooltips like, oh, it appears you've been killed by a dirty ganker guy. They're abusing loopholes in our police system to do blah blah blah. Like, explain what the security systems are. Explain what Concord is. If it wasn't already clear. They get a little more context maybe the first time it happens.
I was
Maybe
surprised.
That mitigates a lot of the negative parts of it because they understand what they've done and what they've done wrong, what the other player is doing, understand that they could do it too to them if they wanted to. Explain what kill rights are.
Yep. No, I found it interesting at the one thing that they do now, because I had created an account recently and gotten the email from a GM being like, I see you've died for the first time to a player. Like, like, any questions that you have, let me know. They reimbursed the ship, and I was a little bit like, really? You're just gonna reimburse my stuff? But whatever, it's a cheap, ass thing. Hopefully this doesn't happen just on an auto kind of thing, because it's nice getting back your ship if you're a new player. It's kind of stupid when you're an old player and you knew what the hell you were doing. So but yeah, that I've heard that when you talked about this before a little bit, just in the sense that you got war decked when you first started playing, and that kind of got you into it. I found that to be interesting, because a lot of things that I have heard is that a lot of the times when you're getting war decked, that takes a step back from the game. Then you're like, I'm a new player, can't fight in this war. Nobody in my corporation fights in this war. We're just gonna quit EVE until the war deck's gone, and then maybe never come back.
Yeah, that's definitely a strategy a lot of people employ. It's never really one that resonated with me. I'm more the type to fight than type to run. So,
and that's why you run a mercenary group.
They're declaring war. Well, I'll give them a war. Let's go, man. I got 75 millimeter railguns in this Tristan, and I know how to use them. Except I really didn't at the time. But I found out, and that's the important part. Once I got that taste of it and went into low sec, that's really when I found what gripped me in EVE. I probably would have gotten bored of hauling in another week or two, honestly. So I can say with full confidence that the war deck retained me, and low sec and null sec retained me very long term. But I don't know, it's not necessarily the typical route for a player.
Yeah, you don't have the typical story.
No. When I was on CSM7, like we took a look at that data, and war decks were more of a determining factor than ganks of whether players quit. And I think there were a lot of very legit reasons for that beyond just fear of PvP. There were a lot of ways that you could abuse the war deck mechanics that were not obvious to new players, and it felt fundamentally unfair. In a lot of ways, I think it was fundamentally unfair, just because the veteran players had such an outsized advantage, being able to take advantage of really outdated, archaic mechanics that had all these loopholes and needless complications. Simplifying that, having the war deck headquarters system, redoing the aggro mechanics, redoing the security flags around assisting players that are in war, were all steps to help with that. Are there more steps needed? I don't know. I think there are some exploits around the war deck headquarters that probably need looked at, as far as alliances dropping from, or corps dropping from alliances and structures being transferred.
Yeah, I've heard a little bit. I've heard about that. Yep.
But as far as straight player versus player ship engagements, I think wars are probably, if not where they need to be, they're pretty close to where they need to be.
Yeah, I really liked the switch over. I really like the switch over to it being about structures, because it's really that makes a lot of sense. They've got something in space, you want to blow it up. This is the reason for the war. And then Sojo Baited said, we got war decked. First I catch Undock gets kicked from Corp. High Sec CEO Anonymous. Yeah.
Oh, is he saying he will kick them, not he got kicked? Oh. So debated. Can I have your members, please?
Yeah.
I'll take the ones that undock for PvP, please. Just send them to Cafe Noir.
Yeah. No, it's good. I definitely am one of those, like, I just want to go out and try it and see what I can do, and a lot of the times I get blown up just because I'm just like, maybe I could take this fight. Maybe I could win this stabber versus a Cinnable, which just happened to me recently. I was like, if he fucks up, if he didn't fit himself right, I was outrunning him, so I felt a little bit more confident.
I think the biggest, and this is a pro attacker point of view, but I think one of the worst things about the war deck system right now is, back in the day, you war deck someone, you could add them to your buddy list. You knew which players were online. You could go run locators to find them, and then you could move to where they were and actually engage them. Now, you can't do that. It's kind of a crapshoot if you even run into the people you're war decking, other than attack the structure that they have. It's not even obvious where all their structures are. So I think the opportunities to get people to engage in the war deck, there's still a lot of upswing there to make it a more fun, engaging experience for everyone involved that are more aspirational than the just the transactional mechanics itself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, at least you do have you know that they're going to be going for your structures, and you can attack structures to kind of pull them to a specific spot. Because I mean, structures are worth a decent amount of ISK, especially if you get up to like Fortizar, size type of stuff. But then that becomes a lot harder. There's a lot of an advantage for the defender defending a high sec Fortizar. Like that's if you have a Fortizar out there, you might be able to pay for mercenaries to come in and help you out. You might be able to.
We have done on several occasions, both in high sec, low sec, and wormhole space. Yeah, null sec as well. Actually, now I'm thinking about it, we've had Fortizar defenses, and it's ranged from, we know these guys are bringing Lashaks. They brought Lashaks every time we've ever seen them. What do you have for that? And we go, well, we've got 10 max skilled E-war pilots. And we'll just like wait till they get on grid, get tackled, and fly our dudes out with ECM and damps and just completely cut their fleet apart.
There you go.
Or it's, hey, it's nullsec. We know these guys are going to bring a lot of numbers, bring bombers. So we'll do like multiple bombing runs to disrupt logistics and that kind of thing. Or we've got numbers, but we need more, or we need more DPS, or it's going to be in a weird time zone for us. We need someone to FC. Those are all the kinds of things that we tend to get hired for.
Awesome. What was your favorite contract that you've been on?
Oh, evicting CVA from Providence for Against All Authorities. By far, I think the best contract we've ever done.
What year was this in? Give or take.
I want to say 2010.
That sounds about right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, I used to be an interstellar alcoholic conglomerate, so we used to live right next to AAA.
Hey.
We had a lot of fun with AAA back in the first Great War, I want to say, with McFix and Bob. To the west, and then we were sitting in Ketch. Living out of Ketch, and AAA was down a little bit more east.
Good era.
Yeah, so you went in and you tell me a little bit about this contract. How did this go?
Severance had taken some systems in Ketch that it wasn't supposed to take, and that it violated a treaty that AAA had worked out with CVA. And CVA wouldn't tell Severance to let the systems go. They just said, oh, they took it, so they get to keep it. AAA was like, well, no, they don't. And if you keep saying that they do, we're just going to remove you entirely. CVA was like, we don't believe you. So they fucked around and found out. And AAA just started rolling in. And we had done some work for them before in nullsec. So the executor and top FC of AAA were like relatively aware of us, liked us, wanted to hire us in for their campaign. And they cut Providence in half. The north half of Providence, I guess, it was north on Dotland. I don't know if it's north in the actual game, but the north half would be like roaming space for their members, and then the southern half would be Noir's problem. And we burned that place to the ground. There was an infamous op. It was myself, Nitty Masters. I think we had one or two other people at some points. It took us over 2 hours to go 5 jumps. Because every jump, we were finding more people to fight and kill. And if we had a rear scout and there were like people coming from behind, like, oh, they're coming this way. There's a hauler. Oh, this is like it's a Dominic's. Okay, we gotta get back over there. We're ping-ponging back and forth. We're like, I just want to roam. Let me roam. And we're just, before we knew it, hours had passed, and we had barely gone 3-4 jumps. Like, oh my god, this is amazing. We were just stacking kills on kills, and because our job was to disrupt their coalition more generally, we set up a pirate radio station that played
Oh,
like music from the Matrix and like rebel reggae music, and we were posting that link every time we went into a new system, encouraged people to like leave the coalition essentially.
that
And
is
every time we had
awesome.
the
This is
opportunity
something
to
that
talk to
only
them-
happens in Eve in a video
Oh, yeah.
game. You know, posting rebel radio station that'll, you know, you're gonna be recruiting them, trying to get them to stop, doing their thing. Like they get blown up by you. Oh man, that
We even recorded little adverts that'd be like, have you or your friend lost a ship? Do you want to know why? Talk to your CVA diplomat today. Like, we would splice it in every now and again just to like really fuck with them. I don't know how many people listen to them or not, but we did manage to peel off 2 smaller alliances from their coalition, including one that flipped to AAA's side, specifically because of our work. So felt pretty good about that. AAA really didn't need the help. They were going to glass Providence anyway, but it was a lot fun, and it was made much faster by our total demoralization of their backline and flipping these alliances.
awesome. Yeah, that sounds like a blast. Maybe you should think about some psychological warfare for the for faction warfare here. So you mentioned before that you do a podcast, Declarations of War. Now that you've joined faction warfare, do you plan on having updates about faction warfare going to be going on in Declarations of War? Or?
We'll certainly talk about it from our contracts perspective. If we decide to stay in faction warfare beyond the contract, either for Gallente or Caldari, we'll probably definitely give some kind of Warzone update just to keep our listeners abreast of what the other hosts are up to and what Noir is up to. So yeah, probably. I'm sure it won't be as in-depth as your coverage, but we'll give it dimensions, yeah.
I always kind of like, is this an interview show? Is this a news show? Is this like sensationalism, or are we reporting facts, or are we just a complete and utter propaganda show? And it kind of feels like it changes based upon what comes about, for the next episode. We're just like, this time we're gonna get drunk and be very, very, very propagandalist. Tell us a little bit more about Declarations of War. What is it? And any other projects that you're currently working on, or if you stream or anything that you want to talk about, just kind of give you a little more of a spotlight.
So I do stream twitch.tv/Alek. I've got a youtube.com/c/AlekseyevK. But the podcast is the main thing. Podcasting has been my passion in Eve as far as Eve Media. That's declarationsofwar.com. We are, depending on what guest INN has, one of or the most listened to podcast in the game, which feels great. The show is a mix of us looking at current events in Eve politics and the power struggles of the game, a peek into some of the smaller conflicts that we hear about, talk about PvP topics like new fleets and new balance changes, CSM stuff, and then we'll round it out with looks at our contracts, contract AARs, updates about Noir's doing. I started the podcast initially just to be, because there was another mercenary podcast. It's like, okay, well, people want to hear about this stuff. We know that they're fascinated by mercenary coalitions, contracts, and videos. People are interested in the mercenary fantasy. Like, what is it? So we're going to give that to them. And we still do, even now. The show has since expanded. We have guests sometimes. We'll talk about patches. We'll talk about CSM stuff. We'll talk about the big nullsec or lowsec or wormhole conflicts of the day and interesting stories that we've heard. But we'll always round things out with what's our corp been up to. Kind of bring people into this ongoing story that some listeners have been checking out for almost a decade now, or over a decade in some cases. Like, what is our corp doing? What's the next part of our story? And what is being a mercenary like? What are the contracts that we get up to? And to answer So Debated, we put out a new episode roughly every 2 weeks. Sometimes a little extra, sometimes we'll put out a double episode. It's just kind of a labor of love, but usually when it comes out, it is worth a listen.
And this is something you don't air it live at all. You do good editing and proper podcasting skills that I do not do.
I mean, we have done a few live episodes. We will probably do our 250th episode is going to be coming up pretty soon. I'm sure we'll do that one live as well. But yeah, for the most part, it's more of a relaxed thing, and I'll do a bit of basic editing, nothing too fancy, and we'll put it out with show notes and things like that. Very old school podcast format.
Well, if you ever need somebody to rant and rave about faction warfare, I'm always free and open to work around any schedule to get on such a prestigious. So I've been listening to your podcast. I'm not religious at all. I just kind of, podcasts for me are one of those things where if I've got time, I'll sit down and listen to them. But I've always known about your podcast, listened to a couple episodes here and there as your story has progressed, and I'm always amazed to be like, these guys are still running hard. Like, this is awesome. Like, it's how long have you been around now?
I've been doing this since 2006, so almost 15 years.
So if the podcast has been running for...
Oh, no. The podcast has been running for a few years less than that.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I was like, I didn't think it got up right away. So
I think we started in 2009, I want to say.
Because you were one of the few podcasts that were around back then. I mean, hell, you're some of the few podcasts. There isn't very many podcasts for Eve.
We're the longest surviving podcast.
Absolutely.
2010 is what I have on our About Us page, so that's probably true.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for the work that you do, and keep it on up for sure. And thank you so much for coming on. Before we leave, though, I just want to give another space for you to give any shout-outs that you might have, and just anybody that you'd like to thank for all the success that you have in life.
I'd like to thank my mom and my favorite teacher. The pitch I'm going to close is a recruitment pitch, and I know you've got your own Faction Warfare Corp, so I apologize for taking any prospective members away, but we are in Faction Warfare now for not a short amount of time, although I can't say what the duration of the contract is. We're looking for more players, people with some Faction Warfare experience that preferably don't just want to do Faction Warfare forever. Even if we stick with Faction Warfare long term, we're still going to be mercenaries. That means we will take jobs within FW to hit specific targets. It also means we are going to take contracts that take us out into the wider EVE space, to go into nullsec, to go into different areas of lowsec, get involved in wormhole contracts to prevent evictions or sometimes to evict people. So if you like FW, but you want a little bit more, you want a taste to the wider EVE, and you want more ISK for your PvP than you're currently getting from your plexes alone, come talk to me. It's cafe-noir.ingame. Go to declarationsofwar.com. You can take a look at the podcast and listen to what contracts are like for us. There's also some contract videos on YouTube. I've got playlists on my channel if you want to check that out. There's an endless way for you to see what life is like in our corp. Give it a try. Come fly with us. See if it's a good fit for you. And we'd be happy to have you and maybe even your corp.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely, man. Well, thank you so much for coming on. And, get me links for all of this. I'll make sure to get that into the show notes for the YouTube and for, the podcast and everything. Always a good drop to have. And yeah, they're Declarations of War. Check them on out. And thank you all for watching. If you're interested in joining up with the war effort, you can also check out Golden Age Stories in-game, Federation Frontline. If you, we are also accepting new corporations. We just got Secondhand Implants, just joined up with us. Two brothers out of the UK that listen to our podcast. Huge shout out to Secondhand Implants for joining up with us. And we are always open. If you're an Aussie time zone, man, we'd have like a trifecta of corps, and then we could do it. We could conquer all time zones eventually. But in any case, you're looking to just join up as a member. If you're looking to join up as anything else, go ahead and hit us up in game. Spies, alts, welcome. We don't care. We spy on ourselves. That's kind of our thing. And if you didn't catch us live on Twitch, which normally we do at 2200 Eve time, but we do make special, special concessions that we work with, our people that need to be interviewed, and you changed it up this time, so it's much earlier episode, so I do apologize. We'll kind of probably re-air this, I think, at 2200, but standard is 2200 Eve time, about 5 p.m. Central time. But if you did miss the show, you can always watch us on YouTube. We're Golden Age Stories on YouTube, Federation Frontline Report for the podcast. That's on Spotify, iTunes. And we also have our website, federationfrontline.com. Go ahead and check that out. We've got a bunch of different links on there, some information. You can get to our Discord. You can check out all of our podcast and everything like that, YouTube links. So thank you all for watching. Thank you all for listening, and have a great night. Oh, and Abby just came in. Now we're gonna be going on over to do some PvPing, I think, so stick around. We'll be right back.